Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. The Eagles are back in the win column. The Phillies are NL East divisional champs, and the Flyers are back. What a time it is to be a Philadelphia sports fan. And with that being said, let's get into this episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Brayden, and I'm here filled with a full panel today. Right here on my left, I have Tyler Farmer. How are you, Tyler?
I'm good. I'm doing good.
Awesome. And over here, we have some new guests on the show today. We have Gabe. How are you?
I'm doing good today.
Awesome. And over there on the end, we have another Tyler. Tyler, how are you?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's get started with our show today. And we have an interesting topic to begin with, and it is the Eagles. They had a crazy game, to say the least, with a wild win over the Saints, 15-12. So what we have here, we have Saquon Barkley scored two touchdowns in the fourth quarter, including a 65-yard touchdown. Dallas Goedert, who was the savior of the game, sets an Eagles tight end receiving record with 170 yards. And Barkley, doing Barkley things, 147 rush yards and 2 TDs. Gentlemen, what a game this was, and honestly, I don't even know what to make of it for the most part. I mean, we won, so that's a great thing, but starting with you, Tyler, what was the biggest takeaway from the game for you?
I think it's this team's resilience. I know you look at the way the game played out, the first 3 quarters, this team couldn't get anything going on offense, but, to get something going in the fourth quarter, in a tough environment, you were trailing most of the game, I think it speaks to this team's fortitude and ability to fight through challenging times.
And Gabe, what would you say is biggest takeaway from the game?
We're being saved by our defense a lot, and we're starting to use Barkley more. We're using him a lot more than we need to start using him more as well, and we got to start doing better. And they got to start doing better in the beginning of the game because, Hurts is throwing a lot of interceptions, a lot of turnovers and everything. But they're starting to do a lot better.
He really is, and like you said, our offense needs to pick it up a little bit because our defense has been saving us, and especially in these games, they've really been helping us win these games. And at the end, Tyler, what's the biggest takeaway for you?
I'm going to have to go with the O-line and D-line. D-line, first 2 weeks came up a little short. Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter got involved this last game. I think that came up big to put some ease on the back line. And the O-line's just the O-line. They're going to do their thing. Giving Jalen Hurts a ton of time, that should help him get wide open looks and put some points on the board.
Mm-hmm. And Gabe, I know you talked about our slow offense. What do you think has been attributing to the slow offense for the Eagles?
It's definitely the turnovers, the amount of turnovers he has per game. He's been on a streak of a turnover at least once every game for like the last 8 games. That goes to past season as well, and that plays a huge part. And they just started using Barkley a lot more, and it's starting to pick things up a little bit.
I would agree, yeah. And what about you guys? What's Jalen's deal? How do we move past all these interceptions?
It's kind of one of those things where sometimes turnovers come in bunches, so it's easy to say you hope that they just stop. I think the first thing that the Eagles can do offensively, try and simplify the playbook a little bit, just try and get Hurts into a rhythm because these turnovers are coming generally early in the game. I feel like if you get him into a rhythm a little bit earlier, that maybe those turnovers won't come as frequently as they have.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we should talk about this. Dallas Goedert, he was the savior of this game, the reason why we won. How excited are we about Dallas Goedert this year? Do we think he's going to maybe take that next step that we all hoped he could have in years past, or do we think there's just a one-off fluke?
We haven't had someone put up that kind of performance in Zach Ertz. We drafted him to really fill that role. And with A.J. Brown out and possibly Devontae Smith, he's going to have to step up again in the upcoming games. And I think he can do it. He should be Jalen's #1 target.
Mm-hmm. And with that being said, we have some injuries. A.J. Brown's out. Maybe now Devontae Smith is out. Where do we go from here? I mean, Dallas Cutter, he's got to be that #1 option, don't you think, Tyler?
Yeah, he's definitely got to be the #1 option. It's going to be important for him over the next couple of games while Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are getting healthy. It's going to be important for him to step up and play in that role. I also think it means that we got to lean more into the run game as they're gone. You know you brought in Barkley for a reason. You still have Jalen Hurts. You know he can run. He's healthy now. So it's also going to be important for this team to lean more into their run game as well to help them offset some of the losses that they have at receiver. And you traded for Jahan Dotson as well. Where has he been? He needs to start getting involved as well.
I would agree. I mean, Gabe, where do you think Jahan has been?
I don't really know where Jahan's been. He needs to start showing up. We kind of need him.
I would agree, especially with A.J. Brown out and now Devontae Smith. He's on concussion protocol. We don't know how long he's going to be. And another guy on concussion protocol is Lane Johnson. These guys could be out in the next game. How crucial do you think this is going to be for the next game going forward, Tyler?
I think it's going to be very big. Like I said, that O-line is one of the best in the NFL for the past few years. And a lot of times we've been able to plug and play because that O-line has a lot of depth. Tyler Steen, Jordan Mailata, I think we'll be all right, but I do hope we get Johnson back sooner rather than later. But just want him to get healthy.
And yeah, I mean, the one good thing about the Eagles has been their O-line, and now with Lane Johnson considerably, he could be out for this next game. Who do you think fills his role, Tyler?
I guess that's kind of, something that we don't really know at this point. How good is his backup? We don't really know how good he is right now. Maybe if you want to find a free agent or trade for somebody, depending on how long he's going to be out. You do also have the bye week coming up, not this week, but next week. So it'll be important for him to get that rest. So right now, I would say it's kind of unknown, how you're going to fill that void of him while he's gone. He's one of the best tackles in football. And the Eagles, when he's out there, they win. And when he's not out there, they struggle, and they struggle to find ways to win games. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fill that void while he's gone.
I would agree. And let's move forward to the NFC standings. Right now, Eagles are in first, as they should be, 2-1. But then the Commanders are right there with us, which is very interesting. And the Cowboys and Giants, both 1-2. It's still early in the year, but how do you guys feel about the Cowboys' slow start, starting with Gabe?
I think the Cowboys next week they're gonna have an easy game, so they're playing the Giants. They should start picking things up a little bit more. I don't think they're gonna be at the bottom for too long, and they're gonna start picking it up. They might go on a win streak after this if they find the pace in the next game.
I agree. And do we think the Commanders are still gonna be second or first, Tyler, going forward?
Yeah, I think so. Nothing makes me happier than seeing the Cowboys lose, especially when they lost by a large margin to the Saints, and then we went in New Orleans and beat them. But I think the Commanders, with the young Jaden Daniels, they still have Terry McLaurin, Ryan Robinson. I think the Commanders are going to be second behind the Eagles.
Yeah. And do we just think Giants probably finishing last? I mean, they probably are. Not to hate on the Giants, but let's be real. And then going forward to our upcoming schedule, not the hardest. I would say week 4 we have at the Bucs, 1 p.m. game. Then we have a bye week, which is gonna be awesome. And then week 6 versus the Browns. So going forward, Tyler, how do you feel about the upcoming Bucs game?
Well, this is kind of a revenge game. This team knocked the Eagles out in the playoffs, beat them down. So this is a little bit of a revenge game for them. I do feel very confident about this version of the Eagles going into Tampa than I did last year. So it's going to be important for the Eagles in this game. You're going to have to run the ball. You're not going to have those A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are not going to be there. You're going to have to run the ball. Dallas Goedert's going to have a big day. This defense, can they build off of their performance against the Saints as well and keep some of Tampa's weapons in check?
Yeah, with that being said, you guys think it's good? Is it going to be a win or a loss against the Bucks? Starting with you, Gabe.
I think it's going to be a win because they found they know how to start now. I think they're finally picking it up. They're running more. If they can bring that into the next game, I think they have a good chance of winning.
And then Tyler and Ed, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to round it out and say it's a W. I like the way they're trending. They got to keep Mike Evans in check. And I'll take Jalen over Baker any day. And yeah, I'll take the Eagles with a W.
All right, perfect. I mean, I think the Eagles are going to win too. So with that being said, let's move into our next section, and that is Phillies talk. So the Phillies, they've clinched the NL East. Let's go. I mean, do you think it was going to be a real shocker? I don't know. But we're here, and they clinched it. So it's the first division title since 2011. They currently sit second in the NL East standings, but very close behind the Dodgers. They lost the last game to the Cubs 10-4, which was a very bad one, and I was unfortunately at that game, but it was fun, but terrible game. And next game tonight, we have the Cubs to finish off in the series. So, Tyler, how do we feel about the Phillies game, or at least the Phillies winning the NL East?
It's a great feeling. Like you said, it's been since 2011. It's nice to get that ghost off your back. The Braves have been pretty dominant in recent years. And when they clinched the postseason, they did hold off in the celebration, and they partied hard when they won the division. And I think last night was a little bit of a hangover game, as in last previous years. And I think they'll be fine. They're going to wrap up one of the top two spots, get a bye, and I like where they're headed.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, they're currently second to the Dodgers, but they're only half game behind. Tyler, how do you think this is going to go? Do you think Dodgers have the edge, or do you think we're only half game behind? Do you think we're going to catch up?
I think that the Phillies have the easier schedule to close out the season. So if I were to guess, I think the Phillies get that 1 seed and get home field. But also, if they don't and the Dodgers end up getting that 1 seed, I'm not too concerned about the Phillies having to go to LA and play in possibly an NLCS series because they had the Dodgers number. So they have the psychological hold at least on them where they feel like whether we're playing in Philly or we're playing across the country in LA, we can go and we can handle our business.
I would agree. I mean, and during the regular season, we handled them. So why would we not handle them during the offseason? But next game is the Cubs tonight. Already kind of won. I know the last game we kind of put in a bad pitcher, and Banks, he was not very good. He unfortunately let out a lot of runs. But tonight is just kind of a game to close off end of the series. I know we still want to win the Phillies, trying to get a little bit of edge of the Dodgers, but already getting the division, how hard do you really want to play? Do you really want to kind of mess up your guys? Tyler, over there on the end, what's your expectations for the game tonight?
For tonight, I expect another win. Like I said, I think last night was a little down night. They're going to come right back tonight. I think the hangovers are worn off, and they're going to try to finish out the season with as many wins as possible. They got one more tonight against the Cubs, and then a series with Washington. And then they're going to take some time. I think they're going to get that bye and wait to see who they play.
That's awesome. And that against Washington, how concerned are you about them?
Not really. Not at all. The only weapon I think they have is James Wood. They can pitch around him. I don't see really any threat. They're at the bottom of the division. I don't know what the pitching situation is going to be because if Thompson wants to look at the playoff rotation, but I don't see Washington as a threat at all.
I would agree. And since we already clinched the playoffs, what do you think what's something the Phillies have to do, Tyler, to get over that hump? We've been so close the past 2 years, but what is that final thing that we have to do you think, going to these playoffs?
I think it's themselves. I think we've been able to have the Braves number the last 2 seasons, and then we've kind of just went cold. The bats went cold. We came within, Game 7 of the NLCS last year, and the bats were cold in the last 5, 6, 7 games. So I think if they can just, they don't have to be super red hot. They just need to keep the bats rolling. Pitching's going to be there. And I think if they can do that, they have a very good shot at taking the whole thing.
I would agree. I mean, if our guys can just hit, we can play defense, keep it simple, I think we have a very good chance. And just play the Phillies game and play the game that they know how to play. I know when you're in Philly, no one likes playing in Philly. I know they have that going for them. That's an advantage for them. But, Tyler, what's one player you'd like to – who needs to step up, do you think, going into the playoffs?
Definitely Stott. I think Stott needs to take a little bit of step up here. I think he's gotten some hits here and there. I think he needs to get some extra base hits. He's towards that bottom of the lineup, but he needs to kind of keep the ball rolling. When you have Casti, Remuto, Turner, and Harper in front of you, and those guys are hitting. You need to keep the ball rolling, and if he can step up like he did last postseason, I think that's going to pay huge dividends for the team and everyone behind him, in front of him. Yeah.
And then now let's go to the NL East standings. So right now the Phils obviously currently sit first with the Mets and Braves trailing behind. Right now they're obviously not going to take over the division. The Phillies obviously have that, but Tyler, who do you think finishes second? Do you think the Mets hold that, or do you think the Braves maybe edge out to get that second spot?
I am going to take the Braves. I think the Mets are going to do what the Mets do, and they're going to collapse a little bit here. The Braves beat the Mets last night, and they are going to continue their series, and I think the Braves have the Mets number, and the Braves are going to falter at the end of the season. And the Mets. The Mets are going to falter at the end of the season, and the Braves are going to edge that wild card seed out. And who knows? There might be Braves-Phillies round 3 this year.
I mean, that'd be awesome. And Tyler, what about you? Who do you think is getting second in the division?
I'm going to agree with Tyler, and I'm going to go with the Braves as well. The Mets, I like to say they got a little cowboy in them, so they're gonna find a way to screw it up and give it away at the end. So I'm going to go with the Braves as well.
I like that. I mean, do I want to say the Braves? I think I might have to agree with you guys on the Braves. I really don't want the Mets to get second. So we'll stick with the Braves getting second for that. And we'll move into our last and final section, which is the Flyers talk. So the Flyers, they're back in season. Let's go. I know everyone has been very excited to watch them play again, especially with the disappointing end of last year. But let's move into the preseason action. They beat the Capitals 6-2, but then they unfortunately lost to the Canadiens 5-0 in a not-so-good game. The next preseason game is tomorrow, September 26th, versus the Islanders. And the first regular season game is October 11th at the Canucks. So, I mean, just starting with basic preseason things, I mean, they got a nice win to start, and then, of course, a loss isn't fun. But it's preseason. I mean, there's just things to build off of. I think at least starting hot, which they kind of have. They've looked good. The new signings have been very good for them. But going into that first game against the Canucks, that's going to be a hard game. I know the Canucks were a very good team last year, and the Flyers were not very bad. They were pretty good in the playoff team, but then they kind of choked it at the end. So going to this first game, especially in Vancouver, I don't know how well this is going to be, but I mean, I have faith in them. Tyler, how do you feel about this first Flyers game?
Excited. I agree with you. I think the Canucks are going to be a tough first opponent for the season. But I'm going into this season as a season of growth for the Flyers. I trust the front office. They brought in Michkov. Everyone's going to come out to see Michkov every night. And just I want to see how they mesh in the beginning of the season, because that's the most important. Bringing in such a high-profile young draft pick is, everybody likes to put their eyes on that. But I want to see how the team meshes all together, new players and returning players as well.
I would agree. And then let's move right into the off-season recap for the Flyers, So they traded for Ivan Provorov, defender, in a 3-team trade. Then they obviously drafted Matei Michkov, who's coming to the Flyers 3 years early from Russia, and then they signed Ryan Poland and Rhett Gardner, 2 centers. Tyler, as you mentioned earlier, Matei Michkov, everyone, especially in Philly, is ready to see this guy, this Russian wonder kid who I know the Flyers have kind of needed. I mean, the Flyers haven't really had a guy with that wow factor, kind of like a Connor Bedard on the Blackhawks. He gives something to this team, and the Flyers have missed that. So, Tyler, I know you mentioned a little bit of Michkov here. I know, are you excited to watch this guy play and see how he does?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, we need that guy, that young stud like a Bedard. Hopefully Michkov is that for the Flyers, and he can kind of be that center light, and the guys can rally around him. Because when you have someone of that caliber of skill, that just attracts everybody. Everyone's going to be playing their best game, whether it's the young guys or even the older guys who want to show that they still have something left. Guys like Couturier, he's going to be in there and maybe mentoring Michkov. I'd really like to see that.
Yeah, what do you think for Michkov? You don't want to put really high expectations on him. I mean, he's just a young kid still. But how well do you think he's going to go in his first year in the NHL?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I think, if he has, 20, 25 goals, and the team can put, a couple winning streaks together. Like you said earlier, we were on the door of the playoffs last season. So if they can find their way in, even as a 7-8 seed, I think this season's about growth, and this team can gel together, make the playoffs, get some experience. I think that will bode well for future seasons, and hopefully get a Stanley Cup in the near future.
I would agree. I know everyone in Philly is ready for this Flyer season to start. But now let's move into our favorite segment, Fast Five, starting with Tyler on the end. What is the biggest obstacles in the Phillies' way?
I touched on it earlier. I think it's really going to be themselves. I think they need to be able to not go cold when it matters most. They need to keep the bats rolling. The pitching is going to be the pitching we have. Wheeler, Nola, those guys are studs on the mound, and we need the guys at the top of the lineup to keep their bats going. We need Harper, Turner, and Schwarber. We love his leadoff bombs, but I think it's really going to be themselves, and they're the only thing that can stand between them and World Series trophy.
Awesome. And then our next one is our biggest disappointment in the NFL with Tyler. Who is it?
For me, I'm going to have to go with the Cincinnati Bengals, who are currently sitting at 0-3. Joe Burrow's he played well Monday night, but overall, he's kind of been up and down this season. This defense sucks, to be honest. They can't stop anyone. And one thing about the Bengals that I don't get, why do y'all talk so much for a team that's so bad? You got, Cam Taylor-Britt, he's talking about, Washington has a college offense. Well, that college offense dropped 38 points on you. So how much of a college offense was that? You're the team to beat in the AFC. Yeah, you are the team to beat because everyone beat you. So I don't understand why this team talks so much for a team that hasn't accomplished anything. They're living off, a Super Bowl loss from 3 years ago. And really since then, they haven't accomplished much. And your upcoming schedule, you have Carolina that has rejuvenated itself somehow under Andy Dalton. And then you got Baltimore after that. So they need to figure it out quickly if they want to turn their season around. And I suggest just shutting up and playing.
Thank you, Tyler. So in our next one, we have Maxi Embiid, who should be the number one option for the Sixers. So obviously, it's Embiid. Obviously, that's the main option everyone thinks and talks about. But what if it is Maxi? I mean, we know Embiid is a little injury prone, so we know he's going to be out sometimes. And what if Maxi can make that jump? He already made a massive jump last season to be the number 2 option. Can he be the number 1 option and be one of the best players in the league? I don't know. As of right now, I would say Embiid is definitely that first option. But we shouldn't count out Maxi because I think Maxi is going to have a very big role because we know Embiid's injury prone. Our new signing, Paul George, another injury prone guy. So there might be times where Maxi's out there by himself with just the role players on the team. So, I mean, Maxey, honestly, he might be the number one option, even though the typical and obviously like kind of no-brainer answer is Joel Embiid. But in those times when he's out, Maxey is the guy. And our fourth one is Hurts turnovers a concern with Gabe.
Hurts turnovers are a big concern because we can't expect to go into every game and have multiple turnovers. We can't expect to make it to another Super Bowl if we're turning the ball over almost every single game. It's not good because we're not going to win if he keeps throwing interceptions every game. It's going to eventually catch up and it's going to become a huge problem for the Eagles.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Hurts has got to figure that out. And then our last one is the favorite to win the MLS besides Inter Miami. 'Cause we all know Inter Miami and Messi is the favorite to win. But who is the other one? I mean, I would say it's LA Galaxy. It's a little bit biased from West Coast. But, I mean, I really like their team. I mean, their defense is very good. You have Martin Cacare, the former Uruguayan international, very good, solid defender. And then also with Jalen Neal, a young American defender who actually looks pretty promising. They've been very good this year. And then with the midfield, I mean, they have Ricky Puig, former Barca Academy graduate. He's been lighting up the midfield for LA Galaxy. I think he's been one of the best players in the league, especially in midfield. And then you just added Marco Reus. Are you kidding me? From Dortmund. I mean, especially when he starts really getting the swing of things, I think he's just going to do nothing but light up the league. And then up top, you have Joveljic, who's a very good striker. He's a very clinical striker. Just getting the ball in the box, he's going to finish it. And then you have Painstill, who's very pacey winger who, I mean, when he gets the ball and he creates so much space, he's a problem for defenders. This LA Galaxy team is just, I think, a problem overall. And they're kind of being a little slept on compared to like the Cincinnati and crew and obviously Inter Miami. But unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today's episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. If you would please check out our socials at Sports Talk LTV on X and Instagram. And please check us out next week because it'll be another great episode. So with that being said, bye.